الإعلام يحيى بناء دولة من خلال رجال اليمن، يعني فرجال اليمن الذي وثق مشاركتهم، وثق دورهم زكي الكرام من خلال الصورة ومن خلال المكاتبة، تعطيك هذه المقاربة القريبة جدا التي يعني ما كانش يمكن ان احنا نحصل عليها لولا انه شخص زكي الكرام كان معه كاميرا وكان يصور.
This for us as new as historians is in the summary archive is his voice, because we have in the archive a sound fragment of with his voice.
فإنه أدى علينا من الفنون والتأمل على التطور الإنسان، وأنه أتى بعلومه إلى
He's trying to say in the East we have history, in the West we have the material, so if we combine them both, then we have a successful human being. Zaki Kiram was injured during the First World War, close to Suez Canal. So he was injured by, British fire. He was transferred in 1916 to Jerusalem for medical operation.
Kam nach Jerusalem in ein katholisches Krankenhaus. Und das Fieber war sehr hoch und dann ging es wieder runter und es ging rauf und runter. Dann sagt die Schwester, Herr Hauptmann, lassen Sie uns beten. Jetzt wird es schwierig. Denn sie ist Katholikin im Namen des Vaters, des Heiligen Geistes und das ist gerecht für einen Muslimen. Was sagt mein Vater? Ach Schwester, geben Sie mir lieber einen Kuss, das macht mich schneller gesund.
He couldn't help him, so because of the German Ottoman alliance in that period, the most logical destination was Berlin. He was put in the Charité hospital in Berlin, and there he stayed till 1921. So he stayed for almost 4 or 5 years for medical operation, for medical treatment, and doctors have decided to amputate his left leg.
In Berlin kam das Problem Sprache. Mit arabischer Sprache, aber auch mit Französisch und Russisch kam man da nicht durch. Man musste eigentlich Deutsch lernen. Also glaubte mein Vater, jetzt muss ich auf jeden Fall versuchen, Deutsch zu lernen. Da suchte er sich die ersten Bücher. Er hatte auch vielleicht eine Lehrerin genommen, ich weiß es so genau nicht. Aber er suchte sich die ersten Bücher und suchte sich eine Buchhandlung, die in der Nähe von der Charité ist, um ein Deutschlernbuch zu finden. Auf diesem Wege kam er in die Buchhandlung von Seemann. In Seemann gab es eine Geschäftsführerin, denn der Inhaber, Herr Seemann, war ja auch im Krieg. Und diese Geschäftsführerin hatte gerade schwarze Kleidung an, weil der Vater gestorben war. Sie war in Trauer. Und er findet dort eine junge Dame, blond und schwarz gekleidet wie viele Frauen im Orient. Er glaubt, es ist eine blonde Orientalin bei Nacht. Und er stellte fest, nein, es ist keine Orientalin, es ist eine Frau hier aus diesem Lande. Irgendwie verständigte man sich für Lehrbücher in deutscher Sprache und sie bediente ihn so gut sie konnte und er fand Gefallen an ihr.
And there he started to publish, to make just like, as a bookshop and publishing house where he published several books in German about Islam and Muslims. And there he changed this bookshop from being Gertrud Neundorf to be Abend und Morgenland Verlag, which means in German the publishing house of Orient and Occident.
Und man fand einen Termin für die Hochzeit. Die Hochzeit fand statt in Berlin-Buchholz, wo meine Mutter Gertrud Neuendorf immer noch zu Hause war, bei ihrer eigenen Mutter. Die Hochzeit war ein Problem, denn es musste beim Standesamt geheiratet werden, es musste mit dem Imam geheiratet werden, es musste ein deutscher Pfarrer dabei sein und es musste in Istanbul geheiratet werden. Es gab also 4 Stationen, die zu erledigen waren.
You can imagine a Muslim, an Arab, coming to Berlin, marrying to a Christian woman who remained Christian till the end of her life. He never pressed on her to convert to Islam. So they remained just like living under one roof as a Muslim and a Christian. I felt that they have for all these years common understanding, although they did have, different religions, different cultural backgrounds.
Warum reden wir zu Hause mit Jumena Arabisch und mit Elisabeth Niederländisch, damit das Kind dauernd diese 2 Sprachen hört. Ja? Aber in Berlin hat meine Mutter mit mir Deutsch gesprochen. Ja? Sie konnte erst nicht Arabisch. Ja, und dann war auch viel verreist in seinen Pässen. Die Pässe sind ja in den Unterlagen drin. Da sieht man, welche Reisen es waren. Man kann also jede Reise mit Datum nachvollziehen. Visum, Ausreise, Visum, Einreise, Visum von dem Land, Visum von dem Land. Also mein Vater war ja viel fort. Und dann hat er gearbeitet zu Hause, am Schreibtisch gesessen. Ja, wie soll ich da Arabisch lernen? Das geht gar nicht. Das kann nicht funktionieren.
When Kiran came here, he was an old military. So for him, financially, he was in certain periods of his life was well off. So it means that it's not, a very needy person who came to Germany because his pension from the Ottoman government and Turkish government was okay to live with during that stressful time, the stressful time in Germany.
Mein Vater, Zeki Kiram, hatte in Berlin viele Kontakte zu Muslimen, aber auch zu sehr vielen Muslimen, die aus dem Orient nach Berlin kamen und deren erste Anstation, eine Beginnstation war häufig bei uns in der Familie. Neben den vielen Besuchen war es auch so, dass viele Leute, die aus dem Orient nach Berlin kamen, häufig als erste Anlaufstation meinen Vater besuchten, weil sie in Berlin eben sonst nicht überall eine Anlaufstation hatten. Unter anderem passiert eines Tages Folgendes. Das Telefon klingelt, es ist die Mittagszeit, meine Mutter ist in der Küche und mein Vater kommt reingelaufen und sagt, Shakib ist in Berlin, wir suchen in einer halben Stunde, wird er hier sein und wir haben nichts zu essen. Was hast du denn da in der Küche? Da sagt meine Mutter, ach, ich wollte dich eigentlich überraschen. Ich habe ein Rezept von Paprikaschoten gefüllt von einer Wienerin. Ach, das kannst du doch nicht kochen, hast du doch nie gelernt. Also mein Vater probiert das und stellt fest, ach, die sind eigentlich ganz gut, die kann man essen. Als Verkehr eine halbe Stunde später kommt, isst die Gesellschaft also diese Paprikaschoten. Shakib isst recht viel davon. Und am Ende sagt er, also das waren die besten Paprikaschoten, die ich je in meinem Leben gegessen habe.
Shakib Arsalan ended up in Berlin after the war in order to lobby for a kind of continuation of collaboration between Germany after the First World War and Ottomans, who were just like, having some nostalgic feelings towards the caliphate, and they wanted just like, to save the caliphate and or either to continue to re-establish it at a certain moment.
So Shakib Sanan and Rashid Rida were both students of Muhammad Abdu. Of course, we're talking about two different types of intellectuals. Rashid Rida is a classical Muslim religious scholar. Arsalan is a cultivated man, an intellectual, and also politician, someone who served as an Ottoman in the Ottoman Parliament and who had the chance to gather a lot of experience throughout his life.
We have to appreciate that Pan-Islamism itself evolved in terms of activities.
They really wanted to spread Islam in the broadest sense of the word, and that's also why these mosques and other groups where they got together were quite an open space and quite a fluid space as well. People from different Sunnis came there and Shia came there, and it was these mosques almost became in a way sort of embassies that attracted a lot of Muslim dignitaries. That whenever they went to the UK or to Germany or to France, they would go to the mosque and would be photographed there and or give a speech.
The relationship between Shakir Sanan and Rashid Rida was revivified in the process of the independence movements, especially the Syrian independence movement, in which Rashid Rida was very active.
That is Muslim revolutionary activity, mainly linked to what was happening in Russia, and that is with the Bolsheviks. They tried to get Bolshevik help to get all of Islam up in flames against the Western oppressor.
So when Rida came and this whole group of Syrians came, they contacted him in order to show them around and to show them the ropes, like we say. And when the Congress, the Syrian Congress in Europe, in which they took part, was finished, they traveled to Berlin, and Arsalan introduced Rashid Rida to Zaki Kiram.
I think if we look at Berlin at this time, we should imagine a center of Arab immigrants. And when we are talking about Arab immigrants at this time, they were students, political exiles, and some people who just settled in Germany because of this mixed marriage, also with German women. Zaki Kiram was part of this immigrant network, and Shakib Arsalan, during his stay from 21 to 25, gathered all those people around them.
Also, mein Vater, Zaki Kiram, hatte zwei Ideale. Ein Ideal war, dass die arabische Halbinsel sich politisch vereint, dass die Araber untereinander Frieden halten, dass sie sich untereinander verstehen. Es muss ja nicht eine einzige Regierung geben, aber es muss ein Verständnis da sein. Das war sein eines Ziel, sein politisches Ziel. Und er hatte ein kulturelles Ziel, das war das zweite. Er wollte, dass das Christentum und der Islam, besonders die Christen und die Muslimen, sich besser verstehen. Das sieht man allein aus einem ganz wichtigen Beispiel.
And I started to look into Swiss archives just to know what was the role of Switzerland in the topic of Muslims in interwar Europe. So I found out that in the Swiss archive there was not only the famous file of Shakib Arslan, they had other files of other Arabs who came to Switzerland during the interwar period.
Arsalan was having all this these anti-colonial activities from Switzerland, organizing protest movements, pushing independence, resistance movements, etc. And the Swiss government had two views on that matter. The foreign policy logic said, well, we have to invest in Arsalan, meaning we have to tolerate what he's doing, because one day when the Arab countries get their independence, we could profit from that. We could say we were on the good side, we always supported the Arab independence movement, so we are an ally of the Arab movement.
They had other files of other Arabs who came to Switzerland during the interwar period. So what is very interesting is that the Swiss administration and the police started to open files with the name Islamistische Umtriebe, which means kind of Islamic machinations, Islamic political activism. And it is interesting that there they started to report on all kinds of activities of what they understood as Muslims.
There were discussions about how to create a European Islam and how to work together, really, and that there were these sort of high-profile converts who really saw Islam as a possible future or a really benefit to Europe.
On the other hand, the Minister of Interior Affairs had a big problem with Arsalan's activities because he was inviting all sort of anti-colonial activists to his home. We're not only talking about Muslims and Arabs, but also others. And this was a big security concern for them, and it put them in a very difficult situation with the colonial powers.
If one looks carefully into Swiss history, that Switzerland was finally of the colonial experience of Europe.
When we say who profited from whom, it is a two-way process, and I think this is the best way to look at it because it's really very complex and nuanced.
So what is really interesting, if you go through the file of Shakib Arslan, is that the Swiss administration put a lot of efforts to know what he did. I mean, what kind of activities he did. So they collected a lot of letters of him, but since they were in Arabic, they needed help. So what they did, they asked a missionary, a priest who lived for a long time in the Middle East, to do translations. So if you open the file of Shakib Arslan, you will find original letters written in Arabic, and then the translation.
If we yield to reading the archival materials, I would say they were mostly used in a successful way to achieve some political goals which Europeans saw.
So yes, they used him to a certain degree, but he also used them. So it was, in that sense, I guess, the best win-win situation he could have at the moment.
Als die Amerikaner Berlin besetzten, sie waren ja wohl als Erste, und ich glaube, sie waren die Ersten in Berlin, also meine Bücher, das war für ihn das Wichtigste, diese Vermittlung zwischen dem Orient, zwischen dem Islam und dem Christentum, dass die Bücher gedruckt werden. Als Kriegsverbrecher, wieso gerade als Kriegsverbrecher, kann ich nicht sagen. Das ist der Grund, der dahinter steckt, war allein wahrscheinlich nur das, was an Kontakten da war. Und aus einem Brief, den ich später oder aus dem Tagebuch erfahren habe, hat er im Krankenhaus offensichtlich sehr viel gelitten. Und er schrieb an einen Freund, das habe ich aber später erst aus den Tagebüchern in der Übersetzung gehört, dass er Hunger hat und sein Freund in Ägypten möge ihm genügend zu essen schicken. Wie weit das gekommen ist, weiß ich nicht.
Zaki Kiram died in 1946 in the American hospital, military hospital. About his last days, we don't know very much except that he was very, very ill, fragile, died of prostate cancer. Who is Zaki Kiram? Zaki Kiram, after doing this research for all these years, was born in Syria, Damascus in particular, in 1886. Born within a family which he claimed to be originally Persian, coming to Syria in the 16th, 17th century. He joined the cadet school in Damascus, where he was trained as a military, and then later he moved to Istanbul to study in the military academy in Istanbul, and after that he became an officer in the Balkan War, where he fought on the Ottoman side as an Arab officer, and later became a commander of the Bedouin troops in Al Arish in Sinai. His wife Gertrude lived and became very, very old. His son told me that his mother lived with him till the end of her life, and he felt very responsible for her. He was very, very loyal and compassionate about her, but he didn't have the chance to take care of his father, who died when he was a teenager. The ARC project was thought and written here at the University of Leiden. We got the grant when I was working in Leiden, but most of the research has been done when the project was transferred to the University of Utrecht. This is from 2014 to 2017, and from October 2017 on, we transferred the project to the University of Leuven, where we have continued the rest of the research project for 2 years. This project, we are working together in it in order to fulfill the targets and work packages of the project, which, first of all, the religious institutions and conversion to Islam. How did these religious institutions, especially mosques, play not only the religious role, but also the political role as European powers wanted it?
These institutions became quite important Muslim almost embassies in these places in Europe, because they were always visited by dignitaries who came from the Muslim world or from other places. And then you also have in France the Mosquée de Paris, which was very much a sort of colonial propaganda effort as well on the French, by the French authorities. But that mosque was opened in 26. So you have these very visible, important Muslim spaces, so to say, that started to develop and were created in this period rather than much later. This is really when the foundations were laid down for the development of Muslim institutions also after the war. But in order to create these institutions, or not create, but to aid in these institutions, for instance, the German Foreign Office also paid for certain things to do with the Berlin Mosque, and then the French Mosque was really a project of the French state.
The second work package is dealing with the idea of political Islam and pan-Islamism. How did these Muslim activists unite their forces in order to compose an anti-colonial movement from within.
In my research, I found that Pan-Islamism, or rather Pan-Islamists, come in many shapes and sizes. They fluctuate, and you can find them on the political spectrum from far right to far left.
So which means that they were using European soils in order to counter against these colonial activities and behavior in the Muslim world.
What's interesting is they collaborate with each other. They see themselves as part of one group of Muslims.
We have to understand something. They were not the only people who had these anti-colonial strategies. Many European leftists, many European political activists were also against these colonial encroachments in the Muslim world, and therefore they collaborated together.
When the Bolshevik Revolution erupted in Russia, it impressed many Muslim elites by its message. Arslan actually met at least Trotsky a few times, but did not have access to Lenin in that period of 1921 because he was busy with the Third International.
So within this sub-project, within this work package, we try to understand what kind of strategies and political mechanisms those Muslim activists have used in order to counter Europe from within. The third work package is more intellectual culture, which emphasize the aspect or stresses some aspects related how did these Muslims living in Europe perceive Europe from within.
By looking at the state archival documents in Egypt and in France, for example, you see that Egypt became interested in having a foreign or a cultural diplomacy that operated not just in the Mashriq. Someone like Taha Hussein, he built an institute for Islamic studies in Madrid. He built one in London. He created a chair for Arabic and Islamic studies in Nice in France, another one in Athens in Greece.
How did they make an image about Europe? You read in their writings and their correspondences, on the one hand, they saw in Europe the ugly colonizer. On the other hand, and on many other aspects, they appreciated Europe as a civilization. They appreciated Europe as a social life. They appreciated Europe as a question of progress. So on the one hand, Europe is ugly because of this European intervention and misbehavior in some Muslim parts of the world. And on the other hand, Europe is their own interactions. Europe is their mixed marriages. So these are two different levels among many other levels by which those Muslims saw Europe. So if you would like to understand Europe through Muslim eyes in the interwar period, I think this project, could tell something about it. All in, our team members in a joint work try to put all these intriguing aspects related to the history writing of Muslims in interwar Europe in a more global and more transcultural perspective.
The program, I direct a program called Global Islamic Studies at Connecticut College, and the sort of associations that American students have with Islam is always the Middle East, and always with Muslims living in the Middle East and kind of staying there, and with Arabic. This project is filling a gap, but also I think bringing up a lot of topics that will help us better understand today as not being such an unusual time.
What I think is really interesting in the project of Amaria is that we do not look what Europe bring to the Middle East, but we are looking into how Arabs contributed to European history, which is totally different from the way how I was trained.
This project adds a dimension to the history of Islam in the West. It adds a period.
So it was, I think, that start, that's of discovery into the presence of people that had hardly been studied on the basis of materials sources in Europe itself, but also in the Muslim world.
And why is this important? Because we want to understand present day phenomena in the light of historical developments. This is the sense of history in general, not only for Islam, but human history in general.
The new thing of the ERC project was and is it looked at not at the period which had already been covered in the past. No, it looked, as far as the period was concerned, to the interbellum, and it also looked to the intellectuals who came to Europe and how they contributed to intellectual life in the West.
It's a very, very small, tiny idea emerging in a family archive in Cairo, leading to me to Germany. And by the way, by the same telephone directory trick, I have discovered other archives in Europe, and which has created a huge network of Muslim activists on European soil. In the last years, we have tested the hypothesis of Muslims whether they were visitors or colonial victims. And I think they were neither visitors nor colonial victims, but they were engaging actors in European history.
Remark. Actually, for me, I have seen the film now many, many times during many days and things like that. So, and every time when I see his grandson, I become emotional. You know, so it's the son of Zaki Kiran. But anyhow, please, if you have any question, clarification, any comment, please.
What is the religion of the son of Zaki Kiran?
Not related to me.
Religion.
Religion, yeah. This is a very interesting question. He's Muslim. He remains Muslim till the end of his life. He knew some Arabic. Even when he sent me letters, he would sign his name. So he knows Assalamu alaikum, how are you, this and then he would write his name. And his wife was Christian, a daughter of a figure, and a German clergyman. But he, when you ask him, what is your religion? He say, I'm a Muslim. And he knows some verses of the Quran a little bit, and but practicing he was not. I mean, it's just like his father died, he was just a teenager, and just practicing Islam. He was a Muslim believer. Let me put it this way.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting for me actually. But looking at the left Ottoman period, I think maybe there was a connection between Zaki Kiran with Enver Pasha in general. But I don't know about that one. Whether he also had connection with Muslim from like Muhammad Assad, for example.
what I know, he studied in the military academy in Istanbul, and he's saying in one of the documents that Atatürk was older than he was few years, so he knew all this, and he was youth basher, so it's just like it was a rank in the army. He fought in the Balkan, but I think his being injured did not give him the chance to grow in the ranking because he was a retired military. What you see in his diaries, he's speaking about those people. But the problem is he was not really satisfied with the development after the abolishment of the caliph. And you see him just visiting the consulate, the Turkish consulate in Berlin, getting his pension, got his pension from the consulate. He would just say, this building is like the caliph because he's just describing the chairs are torn down, the walls are not really good. Everything is just like for him, the abolishment of the caliphate was the erasement. Anyhow, he was within that. Regarding the other intellectuals, I don't have any link between him and Muhammad Asad. But if you look at Shakib Arsalan, he was part of Shakib Arsalan. Muhammad Asad is not really physically part of Shakib Arsalan network as far as. So he was within this network. By the way, we couldn't tell anything, everything in here. He had a connection with Indonesia, Zaki Kiram. If you read the Hadramaut newspaper, the Arabic-speaking newspaper, you find many articles synced by Zaki Kiram about the Ahmadiyya movement in Berlin. He wrote about the military history of Europe, and he wrote really several articles. I have collected really quite maybe 10 articles which he used to write in Hadramaut. And I found some letters, I think one of the, I don't remember which island, but one of the Byzantium directors, he was communicating with him in order to, with Zaki Kiram, in order to help him establishing this mosque so he was also within that. Why? You ask why, don't forget Yemen. So in Yemen, he got to know many Hadramis who had connection.
In addition to Zaydil.
Yeah, so he was there, he traveled to Yemen several times, and he was in that Hadrami network between Yemen and India.
And the second one, perhaps about sources, whether you also use archive from Bashbakan.
No, I actually, this is one of the short times I didn't have the chance to, but one of my students have found some articles there, some letters, some information about it. But this is one of the things which I have not done, unfortunately. But it's. Thanks. Thank
you very much. It's requiring one project. It reminds me of our conversation. I was in. You told me about these orders. Now
you can figure it out.
Yeah, but so still I have you letters.
Yeah, 13 letters in the archive. Yeah. You have to understand, we didn't tell this also because it would be just long story. Rashid Rada visited Berlin in 19 when he was in Switzerland, in this Syrian-Palestinian Congress in the League of Nations, because he was the president of the Syrian-Palestinian Congress, presenting the Palestinian and Syrian case to the League of Nations. So in 1921, Shakib Arsalan took him the tour throughout Switzerland and Berlin, and he met Zaki Kiram in 21 in this bookshop, this virtual wine bar. And Rashid Rida is writing about this in his diary. So he's mentioning today we visited Zaki Kiram, and he's married to a German lady, and then we talked about that. He's mentioned some details about the first. Then after that, Rashid Rida was most interested in getting information from Zaki Kiram for several reasons. One is to get Zaki Kiram was one of his informants because Rashid Rida did not read German, did not read any foreign language. So Zaki Kiram was for him a translator. So sometimes you read in the letters, please, there is a book written by the German Orientalist Andrei Muhammad Zain Glauben Zain Lei, Muhammad his life and his beliefs. Can you please bring it from the library and a bookshop and make for me a summary because I'm now writing al-Wahy al-Muhammadi and I would like to know what Orientalists say about the Prophet. So Zaki can go and translate for him and give. So these are parts of the contents of the others is his connection with Saudi Arabia. Zaki Kiran was also an intermediary in this weapon industry also between Yemen and Germany, and he was also much interested involved in Saudi. So Rashid Rida, because of the friendship with Sheikh Abdul also would intermediate between both and asking him, he was telling him, I can make some economic projects. I have many connections in German companies. We can help the Saudis have their infrastructure, all these things. So the content was, on the one hand, religious, and on the other hand, is also political, economic, and also telling him about the situation of Muslims, telling him about the Ahmadiyya mosque, what are their beliefs, what they are doing, all these things. So the 13 letters really contain for me, it was really an eye-opener. You read these things and you think Rashid Rida in Cairo or somebody there in Karlstrasse writing to him about these things, and it has opened this, this whole world which was for me totally.
Yeah, that was great. My question, staying in Germany, do they, do they know the problem mostly, and especially this, I think, so how's the development of Ahmed and how
Now, I think that case, we cannot. This is a story which has almost been buried. My argument is, when I was publishing about it, is we know the first class Muslims. We are talking, we have books about volumes about Shakib Arsalan. So all those big fish in our history we know much about. But there is another, what you can call second class activists who went to Yemen, who just were involved in all these deals, which we don't know much about. And by accident, you come across somebody like this and you uncover him. You tell, okay, look, this network was wider than these couple of people just fighting each other and meeting each other. No, there is also another world which was functioning. How far people in Berlin know the Zaki Club? I think that most know that. Actually, with this film, I'm trying in the long run to raise this perception that the history of Muslims and Islam in Europe is very tangled. I mean, just look at Liverpool or Cardiff or just like London, these things. You see really the Muslim heritage. And people think, Muslims and non-Muslims tend to problem. So I think this project has just raised some awareness. And the Ahmadiyya nowadays, yeah, okay, if you look at the first mosque which was built in Berlin, as a mosque is almost stopped. It's an Ahmadiyya mosque, but if you go there nowadays, it has the Ahmadiyya character, but all attendants are Sunnis, Turkish, Moroccans. I prayed there Fridays sometimes, and they do not. Yeah, I mean, just they know that they are Ahmadiyya and they are and having Sunnis to pray there, and it was exactly the same time like that. With this Wolmersdorf or walking mosque, you have seen the walking mosque. The walking mosque is Ahmadiyya mosque, but it has been visited by Gulf people. You have seen the Arabs visiting that. Amin al-Husseini was invited to give the khutbah there. But this, therefore, my argument is, I wrote just an article years ago about the Salafiyya and the Ahmadiyya and their connection in that period. And my argument in that article was, in the mid-30s, till the mid-30s, the relationship between Ahmadiyya and the reformist Salafis were very fluid. You find Hafiz Wahba, the consul of the Saudi embassy in London, he was khatib in the walking mosque. So you have till the 30s, this was a fluid, blurring understand. Rashid Rida was communicating with them, praising their work in London, thinking that Khawaja Kamaluddin, the founder of the mosque, walking the best Muslim missionary ever. So you see all these things. So till the 30s, late 30s, beginning 40s, the relationship has changed. Please?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was any documentary evidence or more interactions with academics.
Oh, yeah. You mean German academics?
German or other European academics, or whether they didn't pay any attention.
This is good. This is very good. Now we have I have myself a PhD student who will start next month about the Arab Orientalist encounters in general. How did Arab scholars in that period engage with European Orientalists? In order to break this image of Edward Said about Orientalism and then, as a specific entity, but there were these zones that Arab scholars contributed also to the Orientalist debate. Particularly, Shakib Arsalan had many German and Swiss Orientalists in his group, and Spanish. And they were sometimes come to him to facilitate for them arranging manuscripts from the Arab world to his connection, asking about things. You read this in the correspondences. Zaki Kiram himself was also had some contact with some German Orientalists that had supposed to his publishing house, that he would translate some of their works. So the collaboration with academics and Orientalists there, you find many places.
Very interesting. You may have touched on this, but Humboldt University,
yeah.
Was there a sense of collaboration or interest in his work from?
He studied dentistry in Humboldt University.
Yeah, that's what I wondered.
Yeah, he studied. He's a military, and when he ended up in Berlin, he started to look for studies. Yeah. So he studied dentistry there. And interestingly, he wrote his just dissertation, it's a small book about how Muslims take care of their teeth. With the miswak and and all the things, and it was in that time. It was really this was science in that time. So it was just like it's the dissertation. You shouldn't imagine it that it's a big thing. Just a small book in order to have his MA or BA or whatever, and then he made a dictionary, a glossary of anatomy in Arabic, Latin, and Turkish. So these were his.
The Humboldt Foundation funded lots of German academics to go to the Orient.
Yeah.
So there was a major push for that. And after the Second World War, the Humboldt Foundation then brought scholars from other parts of the world to Germany.
And now they are still continuing.
And they're still continuing.
This is the big thing.
The big thing. Okay. The other.
So the last question. Sorry, the last one for me. Whether he was, let's say, the last argument of things.
No, he was the last generation. Just of those defeated ended up in Berlin, and Berlin was magnetic for them. You find, just Anwar Pasha, Talat Pasha, and the Talat Pasha. So it was Berlin attracted those defeated Ottomans. Arsalan is one of them. Arsalan was also an Ottoman because he was a member in the Ottoman parliament. He was also hoping for the retrieval of the caliphate. But these were nostalgic feelings. So I think somebody like Zaki Kiram is just like represents the generation. And let me just put it this way: this is one story of thousands of stories which have been buried. We don't know, and we may never know and discover things except you have the telephone directory.
Small question. He has any contribution to establish the Sahelitic mosque. Sahelitic mosque. This is the first mosque for the Ottoman soldiers.
Yeah. What I know, he was much more involved in that. Even one of the documents, he bought the carpets in his own office for the mosque. So he was, and at a certain moment, he started to be negative about it. The articles which were written in this Hatamot newspaper were negative. They were not really positive about that. This trend to the 30s. So up to the 30s, he was, active member of the Ahmadiyya. And many Sunnis went there. So it was not really something strange that you visit. Especially that the Lahoris were very clever in that they did not really exhibit their own identity. The Qadianis, they were clear about it. But the Lahoris, they were stressing their rapprochement
millenarian
these
aspects
negative.
of analysis, really like didn't come up.
I think till mid the 30s, it was not totally negative. On the one hand, you see somebody like Rashid Rida having a polemical debate with Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, really, and even Mirza Ghulam Ahmad wrote a whole book against Rashid Rida, التبصرة والهدى لمن يرى, written by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. The whole booklet is against Rashid, anti-Rashid Rida. On the one hand, Rashid Rida is angry about their activities in India, having this heavy polemical debate with Mirza Ghulam Ahmad because of his prophecy and all these things. On the other hand, he appreciates their work in Europe. So this is, and history is really black and white. I mean, this is how it is. And for me, I was really surprised while reading these polemical things. And on the one hand, you read in Al-Manar that he is happy about the walking mosque and happy about their activities and all these things. So this is how it works. Okay. If there is no other question, let me just thank you so much for your time. But if you
Ya, jam 9 masih lama.
Masih iya. Harus ada ngopi-ngopi dulu kayaknya nih.
You go with Umar ya, with Professor Umar. Oh yeah. We wait for her or you go with Professor Umar?
I say hello and I came.
Gara-gara pindah-pindah ini belum karena belum stabil. Enggak, jadi kalau mereka soal kita harus kerjain, jadi saya kayak akhir-akhir ada jalan ke Facebook. Ya, tapi menurut ada prinsip karena ada ini student essay, end of semester. 35 yang berat.